So that is day one of the 2025 IBA World Championships completed here in Dubai. I'm joined by Andy Clark and Ronald McIntosh, who had the two best seats in the house for the action. Andy, I'll come to you first. What did you make of day one? Any standout performance for you?
Yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it. It's great to get underway. The second session for me was absolute carnage. It was just people getting dropped left, right and centre. We had early finishes. We had 3 first round finishes. Final fight of the night, Australian fighter Leon Nicholson detonated a massive right hand, dumped his man down. That was over. Yusupov of Kazakhstan stopped his opponent really early on. Josh Cousin of Seychelles did his in about 30 seconds. We had head clashes, we had everything you could possibly want. And I got a look at someone I've never seen before, a bantamweight from Tajikistan, young fighter, Anashov Fazilov, and he looked really good. You know, I had Umataliyev as well from Uzbekistan, but I've seen him before. But you're always on the lookout for someone you've never seen, aren't you? And I saw him and I thought, oh, okay, possibilities here. So I had a bit of everything, honestly. It was tremendous.
And Ronald, you were watching the action in this very ring here. Who was your standout performance? Any standout bouts for you?
So many standout bouts, so many standout performances. It was a really good day. This is Ring B where we are right now doing this final wrap of day one. And in Ring B we had Fiston Mbaya, the Tokyo Olympian, against Ilya Popov, decorated amateur junior boxer from back in the day, 2018 Youth Olympic champion, and those two produced a contest of really high quality. But Popov, sharp shooting out of the southpaw stance, really impressive. Fiston Mbaya competitive all the way, but Popov a deserved winner. And then we had a young man from Czechia, only representative from that European nation, and he was sensational against the man from Ecuador. Gangly, loose limb southpaw boxer, and he landed a left hand to the body, and it brought about a bit of a reaction. And thereafter, the Ecuadorian man kept his hand clamped against his rib cage, but he just waited and waited and waited, did David Cardbast, and eventually landed a single, sumptuous left hand, sunk the man to his knees. Contest was over, stoppage from a body shot. Very impressive indeed. And then there was a man from Mongolia who's actually a professional, hasn't won as a professional. The man from Mongolia, he fights out of LA, 0-2-1 as a pro, and yet he wore down Lederman from Australia in a contest that was quite literally a contest of two halves, because the sticking and moving from the southpaw Australian boxer, very impressive in the first half of the bout, but then from about the midpoint of round number 2, you saw the man from Mongolia begin to sit down on his shots, target the body, and eventually it was that body attack which saw him prevail on a decision and go through to the next round. So quality, competitive contest. In the early rounds, there's always a couple of boxers who may be out of their depth, but the competitive bouts were eye-catching indeed.
And it's interesting you say that, because there's always a discussion about whether pro boxers should be allowed back into the amateur scene, because people assume once you turn pro, you're a level above. But really, that proved that they are two different sports.
Two entirely different sports. And again, the heavyweights, which we saw in action, maybe it's a little bit different there, but it's marathons and sprints, right? And we're all around the sport enough that you'll see the guys who are accomplished 12-round boxers as professionals. When it comes to this format of boxing, these guys who are going to give them sparring will always get the better of it in the early half of it, and then the deeper it goes on, the pros will come through. But those pros who have come back, a lot of them had made the adjustment and got themselves ready by doing contests in vests over 3-minute rounds. But entirely different sports, but there is so much crossover now that I think that they are giving themselves an opportunity to be competitive over the 3-3s.
Yeah, well said. And Annie, you mentioned there how in the middle section, or certainly after maybe the second session, it started to heat up a little bit. Always find sometimes in these amateur tournaments, the guys who kick it off are a little bit cold, and then it heats up towards middle, and then maybe towards the end when a lot of the guys go home, it almost takes a bit of a drop. Did you find that a little bit?
Yeah, to an extent. To an extent, I think it was just kind of luck that the second session was better than the first. The first was fine though. There was some good fights in the first, and you know Michael Lukalu was in my ring as well, who's boxing out of Luxembourg these days, originally from Democratic Republic of Congo, but he's in a way kind of one of ours because I've seen him box in the UK quite a lot, and we all know him a little bit, and he's a good example of a pro coming in and looking like he can do something here, because I don't think he's had much amateur boxing. He left DRC, came to the UK quite young, interesting backstory, and he's performed well on some IBA Pro cards. Al Siesta's got him on some IBA Pro cards. They know each other from boxing in England, and he's done well on those cards. And he's come here, and he's going to be an absolute handful for anyone. He had a great fight today against Qasim Abudabat of Israel. Unfortunately, he's got Said Jamshid Jafarov in the next round, a southpaw with like 8 feet long arms. And he's also really good. But he's going to give him. He'll give him hell. He'll give him everything that he's got. And he's boxing in that IBA Pro category, which was a good idea because it's for people who have turned pro but are based in a country whereby either the federation aren't registered to the IBA, or they don't even have a federation, or it's a federation that doesn't allow you to stay part of the amateur setup if you turn pro. And there are a few of them. GB's one of them, for example. So that's a good way of getting people like him here because he's got something to offer. And there's plenty of them like him.
So we had 2 English boxers and 2 Scottish boxers, and only one was unsuccessful. That was Vinny Mandir. Ronald, you would have watched the bout. Was he unlucky today?
It was a hard, close contest. Vinny Mandir, who only went into boxing when he was 12 years of age because his dad took him down because he was overweight. We spoke to him here before the opening day of competition in Dubai. Said he didn't fully commit to it until he was around 19 years of age, but was in and out of the gym all of that time prior to that. Mixed with Dan Toward when they were both youngsters. Dan Toward now doing really well as a super welterweight contender in the pros. 2-time participant in the Haringey Box Cup. NAGBC finalist as well, but here he is on the global stage, and he was against the African Championship bronze medalist Jibril Traore, who's a real handful, compact, organized pressure fighter, and it was as though Mandir was trying to counter that with volume. And he did well. He took the first round on a 3-2 split, took the second on a 3-2 split, but because of the distribution of scores, we entered the final round with 4 scores tied at 19 points apiece. So it came down to a 3-minute shootout. And it went to bout review, and ultimately it was Traore that was given it on a 4-3 verdict with the 5 scores all at 28-29. That's how close it was. You can't say it was unlucky. It was a close, hard fight.
Exactly, you can't get any closer than that. Well, the action does continue again here tomorrow, and the boxing will continue there, so I'm sure we'll see you there.